Renfield was directed by Chris McKay and was released in April 2023. The film starred Nicholas Hoult as Renfield, Nicolas Cage as Count Dracula, and Awkwafina as Officer Quincy. The story takes place in New Orleans, which, when you think about it, is a fun Easter egg because the film Dracula 2000, starring Gerard Butler, also took place in New Orleans for the majority of the film. So it goes without saying that the film revolves around the character Renfield. Renfield is a familiar, or as the film defines it, a servant of Dracula who is endowed with a small portion of the Count's powers. Renfield seeks a better life and seeks to rid himself from the Count's service. And along the way, he befriends a traffic cop named Officer Quincy, who is on a mission of her own to take down the local crime family known as the Lobos. So right off the bat, pun intended, this film is a lot of fun. I thought it was exciting, gory, humorous, and since this is a Universal Monsters film, I really appreciated that they tied this into the 1930s film Dracula, where we see a handful of scenes from that film reenacted by Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult playing the original Dracula and Renfield. Now, I do also have to say that I thought the pacing for this film was very well done. The film is approximately 90 minutes, and I thought the film did a very good job at keeping things moving and keeping you invested at the same time. And even after watching it a second time, I was still entertained just as much as I was the first time I saw this film. One of my favorite things about Renfield was I really enjoyed the visuals and the special effects. The film is very brutal and violent, and after rewatching it recently, there were still moments where I still kind of cringed at the huge amounts of gore and violence. But at the same time, I thought all the special effects was awesome. Now, for what the film is, I thought the cast did very well. The film is campy and over the top, but the cast did a fantastic job at keeping that same energy going. Nicolas Cage's performance as Count Dracula was epic. It was a decent mix of frightening and funny, and was also very eccentric and whimsical. To put it briefly, I was both amused and intimidated. I think Nicholas Hoult is a great actor, and this film is no exception. His performance was very well done. While I was amused by some of his antics and some of his dialogue, I still found myself sympathizing with him and his situation. I thought Awkwafina was good as well. To be completely honest, I haven't seen a lot of her roles, but out of all the roles that I have seen her play, I didn't dislike any one of them. I thought she did very well in all of them. And I also thought that she and Nicholas Hoult had great chemistry. Now moving on to some of my negatives, which isn't much because again, this film is a lot of fun. But the film did expect you to just kind of go with things, if that makes sense, or suspend your disbelief, which I know it's a film about vampires, so you kind of have to, but there were certain things that I wish had more clarification. Starting with the first one, I wish there was more clarification on how Dracula gave his familiars their powers. It just kind of happens. Whether it's either Renfield or a group of others, they just one day show up in a scene and boom, they have the powers of Dracula, they're immortal, they have to eat bugs to become even stronger, but it never really explains how. I mean, I'm not asking for much detail, just a brief clarification. I know that in the original film with Bela Lugosi, we see Dracula looming over Renfield and it's implied he's about to bite him on the neck, so I guess that's the best assumption, is that he just bites them on the neck and transfers some of his powers to them. I don't know. The second thing that I was wanting clarified was, when did Renfield stop being insane? As most of you know, Renfield from the original novel or most of the films was driven insane by Dracula, which caused him to want to consume a lot of bugs. And they did show that at the beginning of this film where he was driven insane, but throughout the rest of this film, after that opening flashback, he seems to be pretty normal for the most part. You know, except for the whole consuming bugs and killing people. But it never really stated when he stopped being insane. And I know it's probably not relevant to the plot, but still, just kind of brings up some questions. And number 3, does everybody just know who Dracula is? There has been several occasions in this film where Dracula is referenced, introduced to other people, or just brought up in one way, shape, or form, and everybody's just like, oh yeah, Dracula, okay. One example is when one of the mobsters named Teddy Lobo takes a group full of henchmen to where they believe Renfield is hiding and they encounter Dracula. They are easily taken out by the Count, and when Teddy tries to intimidate Dracula by saying, "Do you know who we work for?" Or like, "We're the Lobo crime family." And then Nicolas Cage, brilliantly just replies, "I am Dracula." And he goes, "Okay, yeah, whoa, hey man, you win." And then when Teddy introduces Dracula to his mother, who is the head of the crime family, she just seems, "Oh, hello, Dracula. Nice to meet you." And I'm like, I was just kind of confused because is Dracula's existence this well known? And on that note, is this a universe where vampires and werewolves just roam free and everybody's just like, "Oh yeah, it's just a vampire or werewolf"? But despite all that, do I recommend that you check out Renfield? Yes, I do. Especially if you're a fan of the Universal monsters. And just remember that this film is a horror comedy, so it's not as serious as the original Universal Monsters films tended to be. To its defense though, it doesn't try to be. But either way, I still think you guys will have a lot of fun with it. I'm gonna give Renfield a B+. But that's my review for Renfield, guys. Thank you so much for checking it out. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've seen this film, then be sure to post your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll be happy to check those out. But guys, thank you all so much for checking out this review again. Be sure to stay tuned for my review of the film Abigail coming out this weekend. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you next time.